Episode 37. Tea with Ava Gardenr. Introducing Mark Holden on the BTS Creative Academy podcast, Uncut. Comfy?
Very comfy. I love the chairs.
Yeah, they're part of the part of the setup.
Yeah, this chair reminds me of was it Eric Morecambe? He used to do in Morecambe and Wise. Was it Eric?
Yes, yeah.
Who used to do the a little sort of a book read at the end of his comedies back before your time.
I know who Morecambe
back
was.
Back in the 70s.
Yeah,
But he used to sit in a chair like this at the end of the show.
Well, it's like they're like storytelling
Story
chairs.
time. Yeah.
Story time,
Yeah.
isn't it? And
Yeah.
I guess that's what the podcast is in a way, isn't it?
Right, I guess. Yeah.
It's story time in a way.
Yeah.
Mark's story time. But before I get into this, I have like a little tradition that's built up
Right. Okay.
with these.
Yeah.
Where at the start I just I do a little clap because I haven't got a clapper board to link the audio and the video.
Yeah.
And it's become quite custom to ask my guests to join me in the clap, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
So it's to start the podcast after 3. We'll do a clap together. 1, 2, 3. And that just syncs everything nicely when we get into the edit. So here we are with Mark Holden.
Good to see you again.
Yeah, and you.
Yeah.
Nice to see you. It's been a little while. We was just discussing.
Yeah.
It's been
Probably 4.5, 5 years.
Yeah, I think the last time I caught you was at a premiere.
It was
of
premiere
of one of my brother's films.
Yeah. I forget what it was now, but it was a horror, was it?
Yes, horror.
Yeah,
The Seven with Dean Cain.
Yeah.
And then I guess
And the gentleman that passed away recently as well, the grey-haired actor, the older, 60s.
Oh yes, his name Dave Courtney.
Yes, I saw
that
that he'd passed away. I didn't know him, but I recognized him from that
that movie
premiere. In fact,
yeah,
because he sat on the row in front of me.
Oh right, okay,
a row or two.
Yeah. So I saw you there last, and as this industry goes, everyone gets busy in their different ways, and then things happen out in the world, don't they? Like we had COVID that mucked everything up for all of us. For a little period of time.
We did.
But with the internet these days, I see you on Instagram, and I see some of the some of the things that you're up to.
Some I can't give away everything I'm up to.
Of course, but one of the most recent things I saw that got me quite excited was I saw you had a link to the new RoboCop game.
Yeah. I voiced the old man of Detroit,
who's quite a for those fans. It's quite a big character, isn't it?
Yeah, he is.
The old man of Detroit.
He's got that gravitas.
And, which you have. You've got that kind of. You've got that natural gravitas in your voice.
I think I got that from my late father, probably.
Right. Okay.
Augustus Aikomu. He was an admiral in the Nigerian Navy and a former vice president of Nigeria.
Right. Okay.
And he had a gravitas that when you walked in a room, you just felt it oozing out of him.
And I'd say then that you've managed to take that and use that within your acting.
Yes, I have.
Haven't you?
Yeah.
Because all your roles are very strong leading roles, aren't they? From what I've seen,
leading roles and supporting roles. Strong characters.
I would say leading in the sense of that strength.
Yes,
and that gravitas.
No, for sure, for sure. Yeah, I mean, just going back to recently, back in June, I finished playing James Morse in Pretty Woman on the Savoy stage for 2 years.
Wow.
Which we started on the Piccadilly stage just before COVID and got closed down after 4 weeks. So James Morse, was an older man, a billionaire that had that gravity and seriousness, defensive against the Richard Gere character when he tried to come in and take his company, forcefully and portion it up. But
what an amazing part to have on a West End stage as well.
I feel very blessed having done that role, originated that role.
Yes. So is that finished now?
That's finished now on the West End stage. It has gone on tour, but unfortunately, my role has been cut.
Oh, really?
Well, it was 2 scenes over 2 acts. 1 4-minute scene in the first, a 4-minute scene in the second. The character had a lot of gravitas and was talked about a lot, but when you go on tour, the producers look at where they can save money and where they can make money.
It's a different game, isn't it? The tour.
Yeah, so they basically amalgamated the grandson role, David Morse, with my role, and made it into a featured ensemble member playing the younger guy.
Right.
I haven't seen the new production of it, but probably relating back to James in a sort of third person language. But so I'm happy that I'm the only actor that's originated it on the West End stage.
And I guess you'll still be part of that. That's quite a big thing to have. There's a script out there that your name will be associated as to the first person playing that.
That's right.
That role.
That's right. It's also on Wikipedia as well.
So, that's quite a nice thing. So you got to see this role, and okay, it was in a film. There's the film connection. But you got to lead how that character is going to be represented moving forward.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
How did that feel?
It's the first time I've originated a role, and it felt good to originate it. In my body and spirit, with my I had a bit of comedy when I did my dance. I got to do the foxtrot with Pretty Woman, every night.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, and there's there's a little quirkiness about the character as well. He's got a bit of inside him when you cut through all the seriousness. He's a warm guy with
There's always more to all the characters, isn't there, what you see on the layer, and I guess that's one of the things I enjoy about acting is discovering that what's underneath.
That's right, all the layers. Like an onion, you peel one away and there's another one, and keep peeling, and
And so over a 2-year period of time where you're on the stage, do you discover more?
Little bits. The trouble is you can't change too much what you've actually rehearsed for the stage.
Of course.
So you just. I mean, my character's arc was a very, very small arc in that sense.
I often think of being a character, an actor in a play. You're a cog in a wheel.
Yeah.
And you've all got to turn in the same way. You can sharpen it up.
Yes.
You can polish it.
You can.
But it's still got to help the rest of the machine.
That's right.
Come together.
Yeah.
So if you start going too much on a tangent.
Well, that's why the resident director is there, because he'll watch a couple times a week. And if the people or the show starts slowing down too much or going too fast or other things, he'll sort of have a chat with us,
bring it back on track,
track. Which sometimes it needs to be tweaked because it's a long time to be doing a show, and yeah.
So I know you as a movie actor, TV. That's what would you say that's what you're sort of best known for being involved with doing within your acting?
Well, I started off as a theater actor in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada.
Okay, and Canada, that's where you're from?
No, I'm British born.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was born in Plymouth and Devon. Back in the very early '60s, and moved to London in 1979 to become a police cadet in the Metropolitan Police.
Right.
And ended up emigrating to Canada in 1987. I joined the Edmonton City Police Department. Because
you've got a really strong, I would say you've got quite a strong Canadian...
It was more American.
Canadian-American accent.
Yeah. I actually went to a dialect coach to change my accent. Okay. When I knew I wanted to go into professional acting. Because I was told by some casting directors and agents over in Vancouver that as a black guy, I wouldn't get a lot of work with a British accent over there.
Right.
Because, a lot of American productions come into Canada, and, they have a lot of African-American characters in the productions, but they don't sound English. So I thought to myself, well, I'm gonna change my accent so I can sort of fit in and get work, And I went to a dialect coach and slowly and surely changed. And I would say I have more of an American accent. I don't pronounce Canadian words, the sort of generic Canadian way, like out and about. Yes. Out and about type thing, like Newfoundland and,
And I guess I'm listening to hearing the bit of the Canadian accent as a British person.
Yeah.
Oh no, I'm hearing it. I'm hearing that twang, and I hear the American, and I can hear a bit of there's a bit of there's a mixed bag.
There's a mixed bag. There's a mixed bag.
As an actor, must be like a really nice toolkit.
Yeah, and I have a lot of people who say they love my voice. They love the timbre of my voice. So I do a lot of voice acting as well, and So I would say I have my main accent is probably a professional soft American. It's not really wide, broad, but it's it's doctor, lawyer, that type of thing. I can do southern states, if I need to, or a bit of New York. But West Coast, West Coast is a lot more laid back and a little slower, and the East Coast is more sort of clipped,
right? Okay.
And you articulate a bit more, and it's right up there in your face.
Yeah, you do. You have that. I'd say that's a very particular skill of yours that you're very good at, and almost like a natural gift you've got through your life experiences, and that comes on to what I wanted to kind of my invitation to you for being part of this podcast is because I wanted to find out a bit more about Mark, a bit more about you, your journey. As like I say, I know you as just an actor, but I know that you're much more than that throughout your life.
Yes, I've lived a very eclectic life. Like I said, I was born in Plymouth to a British, a white British lady called Shirley, and my late father, who was Nigerian, was a captain in the Nigerian Navy and came over to study, probably around 1960, 61. At the Royal Naval Officers College in Dartmouth. After he finished studying there, he then went down to Plymouth to study at the Manadon Naval Engineering College. I'm not quite sure what he studied there, but he studied there. And he met my mom at a dance. I think it was at the Duke of Cornwall hotel, which is still there, and I took my son down this past summer to stay there. Wow. It's very, very old hotel.
Was that to get a sense of the history of your family?
I've always wanted to stay there, and I said to Tyler, let's go stay there. It wasn't the best hotel we stayed in.
No, but I guess
it was old. It was very old and creaky. And,
yes, but it could kind of cement some of that kind of storytelling, that memory that you have of being told this story of this place. You could kind of really visualize it and feel it.
Yeah,
I guess.
No, for sure. So, back then, there weren't very many black people in Plymouth, and probably the only ones were, to do with the Navy at the college, Devonport Dockyard maybe, where they built ships and submarines later on. So my grandparents at the time, I don't think really appreciated my mom going out with an African, because they were in this lovely village in Elberton on the outskirts of Plymouth. So it was, I'm not sure when the last black man had walked through there, to be honest. So my grandparents didn't want my mom spending Christmas at their place with him. Right. So they got a hotel, my mom and my father, my late father. Yeah. And, 9 months later, out I popped. So, wow. I grew up. My mom brought me up by herself for 10 and a half years. I grew very close to my grandmother. Funny, my grandfather died, when I was about 4. Okay. So I don't remember him very well. I remember sitting on his knee. But, I had a very close relationship with my grandmother.
Huge influence on you.
Yeah.
What kind of influence was that?
She was very loving and used to massage my hair and my head and used to read me stories, and I just remember the good times like that, and was always there to
the love
listen to me. Yeah. Whereas obviously my mom probably had a hard time bringing a boy up by herself. Yeah. And I know I was a little scamp. I think I wasn't a bad kid, but I was a little scamp. So I always remember my mom sort of, no, you can't do that. But, of course, the grandmas are always there, but they can always give you back, can't they?
That's it. And they can do that. They can give the love without too much having to give you too much direction.
That's right. Yeah, so, I was the only black kid in the Plymouth school system, basically, and I met my first black person when I was 14 years old.
Wow.
I did a lot of track and field athletics, so I ran against this guy in Bristol.
Did you feel what was it like growing up in Plymouth? Then did you feel any? You say you was the only one.
Yeah,
Did you make you feel any different?
I knew I was different, and I was proud of it. You know, I mean, you can see my character, can't you? I'm a very go-getter, and I always knew I was different. And I was a good athlete. I was a big kid, very in stature, and I was a good athlete, and I was pretty good at some sports. So that made me even more noticeable. You know, so there's this sort of brown kid, you know, who's good at athletics, and I joined the Plymouth Athletics Club from probably 11 and a half, 12, right through until I was, 16. And I actually started my acting back in Plymouth as well.
That's where you kind of had that discovery.
Yeah, my mom used to take me to live theater, pantomimes, musicals, mainly put on by local theater groups down there. Musicals like Oklahoma, some of the, South Pacific, stuff like that, you know. And she always used to take me to a lot of movies. That's when, used to go to the theater and used to have a double movie, with an intermission, just like a play. You'd go watch one movie an hour and a half, have an intermission, and you'd watch a second movie. And we used to watch James Bond. And
it was an experience. Oh yeah, back then going to the theater, wasn't it?
And then I remember I spent one Christmas, I think it was probably 1970 or 71, at my grandmother's place with my cousins and my aunt and stuff and my mom. And I remember West Side Story was on. And for some reason, I guess it must have been the dancing and singing that attracted me. I don't think I really understood the story back then when I was that age. But I always remember watching it. And
it was something different.
I think it was that iconic dance move where the three of them are up in the air with one arm up and a leg, and it's the iconic move.
Yeah, it was a mix of Spanish dancing and ballet. There in there. It was a very different piece of its time, wasn't it?
Exactly.
And actually, that was a piece that very much drew me into wanting to be part of film. At quite a young age, because I felt a different watching films like that. I felt some drawn in and a connection to it. So you, when you saw that, what did that make you feel? When you saw films like that?
Well, it's always it's like it was branded onto my brain. I just remember West Side Story, then the iconic move, and the "when you're a jet all the way," that type of thing, along with. The Wizard of Oz, The Sound of Music, Mary Poppins. I saw all those as well, and the Disney animated cartoons, Bambi and The Jungle Book.
So, what did that do to you then? Did that drive you at that point into pursuing some kind of acting or performance?
Gave me a taste of wanting to do something.
Right.
But at the same time, it was another Christmas. I think it was probably the Christmas just after that. I spent in Bristol with my aunt. Auntie Mary, who's still around. She's just turned 92 recently. And my two cousins, Glenn and Gary. Gary was an athlete. And I remember the Boxing Day of that particular Christmas, probably 71 maybe. He did a road race. And I watched him. And I thought, I could do that. So around the same time, I think I joined the City of Plymouth Athletics Club. And I joined a local musical theater group.
Okay.
Probably around the same year, and I did a few review shows and pantomimes, and I trained as well, and that's I became a good athlete, and then decided to become a police cadet when I was 16. My last year of school. That prior Easter I'd spent. There was like a police camp. For school kids to go and spend a week, with the Devon and Cornwall Police at Crown Hill in Plymouth, just to see what police officers did, and and I had a taste for that. And then another friend of mine became a cadet from the City of Plymouth Athletics Club, and he told me, "Hey, go be a cadet because you do a lot of sport. They let you do athletics."
Yeah,
so that's what I did.
It looked like a good career path, good life.
Yeah, and. The last couple of years before that, I'd stopped acting because the athletics and the acting clashed.
Yes.
I didn't have enough time to do them both.
Yeah, that's often the way I hear that with a lot of people around this area where I do community theatre here. There's a lot of people that are interested in football and acting, and they'll often have to pick between one or the other because they happen at the same time.
That's it.
And there's the commitment of time as well.
And I was very good at athletics. Mm-hmm. The acting, there wasn't a lot of... there was enough to learn a bit about the craft, but I got more out of the athletics at the time, because there weren't many acting places for kids in Plymouth, really. So I went up to London, became a cadet, did well in athletics, went on to become a police officer, police constable in the Met Police in 1981. Started going to the Pineapple Dance Studios in Covent Garden.
Yes.
And probably around 81, 82,
okay.
82, say, and
so
did
you
some
had.
dance.
It sounds to me like you've had this life, but you've had this performer
trying
to burst
there.
out,
yes.
trying to break free.
For sure. Mm-hmm. And I joined 2 theatre companies in London whilst I was a police officer. One was FLOSS, the Fulham Light Operatic Society, and another one I can't remember the name of the company, but I did a show with them at the Wimbledon Theatre, and it was Sweet Charity. And I played Daddy Brubeck. So, I was doing my athletics along with that. So, I was doing everything, a dozen balls in the air.
Juggling a few different things. And was it a case of doing the different things to see if something would stick, or just because you were enjoying those different aspects of your life?
The acting I always enjoy. And I met a very good friend called Vanessa on my beat in Victoria. Mm-hmm. And she introduced me to the FLOSS theatre group. Mm-hmm. So I made a whole bunch of friends through Vanessa, Vanessa Smith.
That's the beautiful thing I find with this as well, is the connections of like community that you can build and friendships that you can find along the way.
Exactly.
And you can find that with the sport as well.
Oh, you can.
Yeah,
you can. Yeah, no, you can. I made some friends. But it's funny, the friends I made through theatre, I still have now, some of them.
They stick in a special kind of way, don't they?
Yeah. Whereas, I guess they're closer friends. I've still got sort of people I know from my sporting days, And what with the Facebook now, there's groups, there's different groups, school groups, sporting groups. So you can you can stay in touch with people,
Yes, yeah.
And then I got onto the Great Britain bobsled team. Now, years ago, probably 84, a friend of mine said to me, "Did you see that article in the Daily Mail?" I said, "No." He said, "Well, they were looking for the Daring Dozen, 12 athletes to take to St. Moritz in Switzerland to the Cresta Run, which is a toboggan run,
right?
Which is, where all the sort of the British aristocracy go, and the Swiss aristocracy. It's a very, very upmarket club.
Yeah.
And they were looking for 12 athletes from the United Kingdom. So, by this time I'd done really well at track and field. I'd represented the British police. I won the decathlon at the International Police Olympic Games in Austin, Texas in 1982. So, I had a
strong resume.
Very strong sporting resume. So I applied through the Daily Mail, got paper sifted down from about 300, 3,000.
How old were you at this point?
23?
Mid-20, yeah, okay.
23, yeah. I got paper sifted from 3,000 people down to 50. And then that 50 they took to up to Hendon, to the police training, the old police training school, to have a competitive weekend. So, we did all sorts of things, sit-ups, push-ups, chin-ups, runs, log carries. We did sort of team stuff as well,
Yeah.
And I ended up getting in the top 12 out of the 50. So later that year, so this is 84, so 85. No, sorry, January of 85. So I did the competition in probably the fall of 84. January of 85, we got taken out to St. Moritz. And, we were there for 2 weeks, all expenses paid. We were trained on the Cresta Run and had a competition on the last day, which I came 4th out of 12. So, the guy who won it was a guy called Nick Ovett, Steve Ovett's brother. Remember Steve Ovett, the athlete?
I do. My dad's an athlete, so I know these. I know about Steve Ovett quite well.
Yeah, so Nick was Steve's brother, who was a luge competitor.
Right.
So he competed for Great Britain at luge. So, skeleton, which is, luge is feet first, skeleton is face first. So, he won because, I guess he had a good idea of the lines and stuff. Yeah. But it was a great experience. And whilst I was there, I was watching the bobsledding because St. Maurice is a very famous bobsled run with a corner called Horseshoe where you get about 3 Gs going around it. So I went there and watched these guys push off and sprint at the top, and I thought I could do that. So when I got back, I phoned up the British Bobsled Association, and they invited me down to Thorpe Park, where their training establishment was. And I made the team that winter. In fact, that summer, I made the team because they took me to Riga in Latvia, in the old Soviet Union, to compete in a push start competition.
Right.
And that's literally a push start over 50 meters, and all the international teams just push and see who can get the fastest time. But it's on an ice. It's on an ice push start. So you push down, it goes down, and then it goes up the other side, and you stop. Right. And then you got to push the sled back and do it again. So so we did that.
Sounds quite a thrill ride. That.
Oh, it was, yeah. And then I actually got on the British team as GB3, and in probably February of '86. We went to the World Championships in Königsberg, near Berchtesgaden, Germany, where Hitler's Eagle's Nest overlooks the area. And we came 16th out of 42 sleds in that competition. So that was
something to be proud of.
Yeah,
amongst all those other athletes.
Yeah. And then, I went to Calgary for pre-Olympic training for the '88 Olympics. This was in '86. I had quite a good time, but I didn't make the Olympic team. But I made I met a lady over there, and we got married, and I emigrated. Wow. So and ended up joining the Edmonton City Police Department in Alberta.
Sorry, where was this to? Where's Alberta?
So Alberta, Canada.
Is in Canada.
Yeah, so Edmonton, not Edmonton, North London.
No.
But spelt the same.
Okay.
Yeah, so Edmonton, Alberta. So So it's now the Edmonton Police Service. So when I joined, I think it was department, but a lot of police departments now have changed their name to services because they say departments are too sort of, we're a department and we'll tell you what to do. So it's a service, right, a service to the public, basically.
I guess there is an element of that they should be looking to serve the people.
That's it. Yeah. So, well, especially now, of course. I'm glad I'm not a cop now. I can imagine. I think I had the best years as being a police officer in the UK and in Canada. But it's changed a lot now. So I became a police officer in Edmonton, and then also started bobsledding with the Alberta bobsled team. So that's a province of Canada, because different provinces had teams as well. And then I got on the Canadian team for one season or for half a season. Came back to Europe, toured around, and then had a bit of a falling out with the management. That was sort of late 1990 in the fall. And they said, well, you can come back next year and try out again for the team. And I thought, I'm not going to waste any more time. I've had a good kick of the cat.
You didn't feel it. It didn't feel right.
No, it didn't feel right, and I don't know. Maybe my heart wasn't into it properly. But I then decided to, I thought, right, what's my other love outside of sport, and that was acting. Because being a police officer for me, I don't think I ever looked at it as a life career. Even though I joined at a young age, because I always had other interests, So, and
did you kind of see it as a job then? That was the job.
I saw it as a job, not a career. Yeah. So in 1991, I started doing scene study classes and seminars, talks, led by different casting directors and things like that. I did a scene study class at the Edmonton Citadel Theatre in Alberta. And I started doing, I joined an amateur theatre company in Edmonton called the Walterdale Players. And Let me think. And then I started doing sort of dinner theater.
Dinner theater,
where it's at a restaurant,
okay,
but you do a play and people are eating as well. It was like a semi-professional job.
Okay.
And I did some commercials.
So did you see it as a thing you do as professionally, or
something I knew I wanted to do?
So you knew you wanted
the bigger, yeah.
You wanted to head down this road.
Yeah.
But you saw these things as the amateur dramatics and the dinner parties. You saw them as kind of
stepping stones. Because I had young kids at the time.
Yes.
I got divorced quite young. Quite early after though. But I had young kids, so I couldn't sort of just pack everything up.
No, you had the responsibility.
I had a responsibility. So, and then I was probably 1992. I was playing an extra role on television for a show called what was it? I forget the name. It's about Hollywood. Okay, it was about the different Hollywood stars. And the one we were doing it on was Sammy Davis Jr.
Okay.
Yeah. So I happened to be, playing a sort of a bar guest in the scene with the guy playing Sammy Davis Jr.
Was it like a TV
docudrama?
Docudrama.
It's docudrama. Right. Yeah. I'm just trying to think. It was Hollywood Babylon. I think it was called Hollywood Babylon.
I'm sure it'd be on your IMDb. Will
it
Someone
is. Yeah.
Tagged you?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. And it went through all these different stars, and so I was in there, and I met another actor, because in Edmonton it was a big theater acting city. Film and TV there was a little bit, but there wasn't tons. So you got a lot of theater actors doing, all any sort of TV bits and pieces that came along. Yeah, and there was this guy called Glenn Gaston. And he was playing a photographer, and I hadn't met him before, and he started chatting to me, and he said, "Have you ever worked at the Citadel Theater?" I said, "No." He said, "Well, you need to go down there." He said, "They're looking for actors of color because they're doing Peter Shaffer's The Royal Hunt of the Sun." And I remember probably about 6 months before that, I'd phoned the casting coordinator called Margaret Mooney, who was quite a legend in Edmonton to herself, and she was also a good artist as well as, being one of the leaders at the Edmonton, at the Citadel Theater. But when you spoke to her, she was she came across as quite abrupt. And I remember at the time when I phoned her to find out if they were having generals, she was not rude, but just very abrupt and very busy. And so I thanked her. I said, "Oh, thank you very much." And I thought, I'm not sure if I'm ready to
jump into this.
to jump into that, because it felt quite deep.
Yes,
at the deep end of the pool. So Glenn told me to call Margaret Mooney. So I think I called her up and I said, "Oh, hi, I bumped into Glenn Gaston and he was telling me about the Royal Hunt of the Sun, and I'm a mixed race actor. Come in. So I think I went in either that day or the next day. And she said to me, "Where have you been?" I said, "Well, I live in Edmonton. I'm a police officer, but I've been doing bits and pieces." And she told Robin Phillips, who was the Director General. Now, he was a British guy who I guess was well known in the UK for playing David Copperfield in the 1970s television field, David Copperfield.
Right.
But he left as a sort of probably an actor in his 20s and emigrated to Canada and became a director at the Stratford Festival in Ontario, where they do Shakespeare. Now, he'd been there for many years, but now he was in charge, he was the Director General at the Citadel. So I already had a monologue, in my head, because, theater actors
it's
especially
good to have
monologues in their head. And Robin came out, and he was just as eager as Margaret, and he said, come in, and I did my monologue, and I was cast as Vilak Umu, the chief of the Inca Empire, in my first fully professional theater show.
Wow. And that sounds to me like that came from a chance meeting with someone.
Yes.
And you took a bit of direction,
Yeah.
you took that opportunity, and you moved forward with it, and it's...
These chance meetings come up in life for everybody, but it's whether the person takes advantage of it, and it could be a chance meeting on the street. Somebody drops something. Oh, hi. Sorry, there you go. Oh, hi, how are you? Oh, yeah, I'm in a rush today. Where are you going? Oh, I'm just going down to an audition. I mean, it's like an encounter just like that, or on a bus, or on a tube, or in a coffee shop. It could be anything.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't take advantage of meeting people they don't know.
And that's a great example, your story, isn't it? Of taking that and doing something with it and leading forward and seeing where it will take you.
Exactly. And it took me to my first professional show. And it gave me my first credit towards my application to become a member of Canadian Equity. And Robin Phillips cast me in 6 other shows after that at the Citadel. So, I worked from 1992 through until about 95. Not, full, but because a lot of the shows we did 4 weeks rehearsals, 3 weeks show.
Okay. Yes, yeah.
And I was policing at the same time, so it was busy.
So you still in amongst your...
Oh, yeah.
You didn't take that and then go, right now I'm an actor.
No.
Right.
No, I was, I'd rehearse all day. I'd grab 2 hours sleep, or 3 hours sleep. I'd go in, do a night shift, grab 2 hours sleep, and go back to rehearsal. I ran myself into the ground a few times, and I got bad colds and stuff.
So how did you keep going through that? What was the drive?
The drive.
The drive.
I just have the drive to succeed, to get where I want to get to, and the love. Also, in '91, when I decided to do all this, scene study and the first few steps, I had the sort of the forward-thinking vision of going to Vancouver, because I'd heard a lot about Hollywood North, which is what Vancouver was called. And I thought, I love the sea, because I was born in Plymouth by the sea. And I hadn't been to Vancouver, at that time. But as I started getting into the Citadel stuff, I started taking, weekend trips to Vancouver, or going there for a week. And an old buddy of mine that used to be on the Adrian Di Piazza, who used to be the driver of the Australian bobsled team. He lived there, so I would go stay with him for a week and get to know Vancouver and try and get meetings with casting directors or agents, because I was looking for an agent at the time.
So parts of your life that you had before were now finding ways to support you in your life moving forward.
And then another friend of mine, David Silvertson, who lived in Edmonton, him and his wife at the time moved out to Vancouver. So I used to go stay with him as well. This was all through the early 90s, And then in 1990, let me think, early 96, I auditioned. There's a Shakespeare festival in Vancouver called Bard on the Beach, run by Christopher Gaze, again another former Brit who's been out there for years, and he's built the festival now up to a gargantuan thing from when I was there. But I saw that there was a casting breakdown for an actor to play the Prince of Morocco in The Merchant of Venice. So I went out there to audition for that, and they had a special guest director at the time come in for that season, Douglas Campbell, who was a very well-known actor-director from Toronto. And so I auditioned for him and Christopher Gaze, got back to Edmonton, and then found out that I got it. So I had a 5-month contract. So I thought, right, this is my way out of the police in Edmonton.
Is some security within what you were pursuing?
There was 5 months
there was
worth.
5 months, which for an actor is quite a lot.
It is. Yeah. And
but I guess there was a moment there of choosing: is this the path?
No. I mean, I knew by then that this was it. I would take this opportunity. I was waiting for an opportunity like that.
Right.
Whether it was a theater project, or it could have been a TV series or a big movie that paid a chunk of money.
That was the permission you needed.
That was the permission I needed. Yeah. I was having quite a good time in the Edmonton Police at the time. I'd taken my sergeant's exam. I was a temporary acting sergeant in communications. So there was the evaluation side where you receive all the sort of general calls and 911 calls. Right. And then there was the dispatch side where you dispatch police cars. Mm-hmm. So I had training in both those, and then I took my sergeant's exam. Now, I took my sergeant's exam to prove to myself, even though I knew I was going to leave at some point, to prove to myself that I could do it. And I think to prove to some of those naysayers, because there's always in the Metropolitan Police and the Edmonton Police, there were always guys that were envious of me or didn't like to see me excel, and especially because I had stuff outside the police. Mm-hmm. When there's, it's not.
So there was some jealousy?
Oh yeah. There's some racism. I've experienced a bit of racism and jealousy, but it doesn't stop me. Mm-hmm. I don't let that. I've got a big personality, and I just work my way through that.
What is it within you that helps push you forward to get past that jealousy and that racism that you've experienced?
Because I want to do well. I want to get to where I'm going. Mm-hmm. I don't want to be held up by anybody. Especially racist people.
And I guess what value is there in that? Is allowing those racists to stop you or the people that are jealous?
It's just showing them, I don't need you, I'll get on with my life. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to waste any energy,
Yes, yeah.
Now, obviously, different people have different incidents and different experiences with that, I can't speak for anybody else's experience or anybody else's situation where they've come from. I'm just talking about from my own situation. I've never let anything get in my way, And so I would say that I had more people on my side, that wanted to see me do well than the naysayers. Yes, so that was good.
And that helps a lot, doesn't it?
Oh, that helps. That helps.
When you've got people that have got your back.
Yeah, for sure.
And we talked about that love that's within you from like your grandparents.
Oh, yeah.
That counts. That counts for a lot, doesn't it, as well?
Yeah, and I've had some very good friends. Mm-hmm. And I've had some very good people who've given me advice, as I've been growing up and over the years, from teachers at school to friends to mentors, to sporting mentors, to acting mentors, Yeah. And so when I got this job offer, I went to my sergeant or my inspector, told him, and he says, "Are you sure?" I said, I'm sure. He says, "Well, we're going to be sad to see you go," and a lot of people were, but it was the right decision for me,
Yeah.
My two girls at the time were young at the time, so obviously that hit them quite hard, which, I've sort of apologized because I had to move cities,
Okay, yeah.
So
we do have to make some choices in our career that might not suit everyone.
No.
And that is harder when we have children and family.
Sometimes being a solo actor, you do things for yourself. Sometimes not thinking how it's going to affect people,
Well, I'm sure at some points you do think about how it's going to affect people.
You do,
but I think you've got to find a way to, if you're not taking care of yourself and what you need, how can you take
care of somebody else? Exactly.
Yeah.
And, I have a close relationship with both my daughters in Canada, and I've sort of apologized for some things I've done like that, but I just needed to do that at the time, Mm-hmm. And so I moved on to Vancouver and did the 5 months in the Bartleton Beach, which was a wonderful experience. And I made friends there who I've still got today. Mm-hmm. And then I started getting into doing movies and things.
How did that transition happen? Was there a natural transition or a
prior when I got Bart on the Beach? I had about a 3 or 4 month window. I think I probably landed that in January, but I didn't leave until May. So in those 3.5 months, 4 months, I went out there and I got myself an agent. Yeah, so I knew I had an agent to go to.
So you knew you had a connection out there that was.
And I also got myself a private investigating job. Because, being an ex-cop.
You had that experience.
I can't remember now, but I think I got the Yellow Pages back then.
Yeah, that would have been right.
Yellow Pages, folks, are what we used to use Google as now. So I went through there.
My kids, they wouldn't have a clue. My son's 18, and I think recently I mentioned Yellow Pages.
Yeah.
And he was like, what the hell are you? What, yellow paper? What
Yeah,
is that?
I know.
Yeah.
So I think I
There was a
looking
world
through.
before Google. Wasn't
Yeah. And you could find everything in there. you know?
Yes, yeah. A big, thick book like that. Turn up on
very
your door
thick,
once every 6 months. Or
Something
so.
like that.
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah. And I remember going through there, looking under security, and then I think I found this private investigator thing, and it said Shadow Investigations, Ray Helm. So I gave him a call, went out to I think it was Surrey or Delta in the Lower Mainland to meet with him. This was when I was just out there recceing. And of course he was impressed that I was an ex-Met Police, British police officer, and ex-Edmonton. And he explained what they did, surveillance and stuff like that, a lot of surveillance. And he said, well, register to get your private investigation license. So as I was doing Bard on the Beach, I registered. I got that. So then, when that was over in September of 19. God, I'm going. When was this again? 1996.
Yep.
96. Yeah. 96. Yeah. September 96. So I started doing some private investigation, following people, following cheating husbands, cheating wives, cheating girlfriends.
Was that the main call? Was it? For
a lot of that. Yeah. A lot of wealthy women,
right,
who their husbands have cheated in the past, and I think they probably knew that their husbands were cheating again. They didn't want a divorce because we were talking people who lived in West Vancouver, big money.
Okay, so yeah.
But they wanted to know what they were up to. So we used to follow these husbands around, these businessmen around, chatting, taking their young whatever secretaries or whatever to lunch. And the wives were quite happy, just knowing what they were doing.
Would most of them be doing something wrong, or would there be?
Well, they'd be out with a younger woman or something, Also,
is there anything that you kind of learned from that period of time doing that job that it was kind of a takeaway to what you're doing now?
Oh, if you're going to start messing around, you'll get caught eventually. If you're silly enough to mess around, because you start telling lies, and there's lies beget lies, and you make mistakes and things. Yeah.
No one can. No one can get through them lies.
No, especially now. I mean, I'm talking about the 90s. Now everything's on the internet. I mean, there's photos of you everywhere.
Yeah.
And insurance fraud. Somebody can't go to work because they got a bad back. And I followed them down to Granville Island, and I watched them play tennis. Or you follow them to one of the Walmart stores, and they're leaning up to the top shelf to get a heavy box down to put it in their trolley, and then bending over to pick another thing up.
But what a great life lesson to being able to get from doing that job, about the lying and about the being truthful.
Oh yeah,
you can see that you could kind of see that within all of these people that are going out there living a life of lies.
Yeah,
and the damage that would be doing to themselves and the people around them.
Of course.
And the takeaway for you.
Yeah. No, exactly. Yeah. All these people stepping out of line, and you can see the mistakes they're making that.
And you can go, I don't want any of that.
No, no, exactly. And there's all. I mean, I was asked to go. And there was a guy that had an ex. They weren't. I don't think they were married, but they had a kid together, and he was sure that she was into cocaine and stuff. And I had to go befriend her group of friends, the group she hung around with, which again were wealthy people. So I
so
found
the
out,
acting skills came in useful.
Yeah.
The being able to be someone else, to improvise.
I was told where her group of friends would drink and sort of have eats at a quite a nice bar restaurant in West Vancouver. So I went up there and managed to get talking to her and her friends, and there was a group, guys and girls there. Got talking to them and said, "Oh, I'm an actor," because you take elements.
Yeah,
you take elements of your own life, because you don't want to start lying because you'll get mixed up then. So I said, "I'm an actor. I've just finished Bard on the Beach, blah blah blah," and hence I was invited to a party. 10 days later, up in West Van in the big house, and. You collect. I mean, you collect all the information up here, And then, you finish, after the party's ended, you go back home and you write your report.
So this was your like your job that was supporting you through the next phase of your acting career.
Yeah, exactly. Because an actor's life is like a roller coaster.
Yes, hugely up and down.
Yeah,
you do. If you're lucky enough, you'll get those highs, but there's going to be these lulls.
These lean periods. Yeah.
So you need that thing to support you through that.
Yeah. The first TV series I landed, or the first episode I landed of a TV series, was The Sentinel.
Right.
And I played a Reverend Diggs, his name was. So that was one episode, but it was fun. And then shortly after, I landed a TV, an MOW, Movie of the Week, with Richard Chamberlain.
Kind of like a Hallmark movie, is that?
It's similar, yeah, but it's for different networks.
Right.
They'll have a certain budget to produce a movie. And I did a movie with Richard Chamberlain, who was playing a sheriff in this movie. It's on my IMDb. It's the something Winters or something. But I played his deputy. Wow. So, I got to work with him.
Firsthand. And what was that like working?
Oh, it's amazing.
With a
legend. I mean, one of his big claim to fame was the Thornbirds, where he played a reverend, I think, in the Thornbirds, a big TV series. So women were in love with him, in his earlier days.
Definitely.
He was older when I met him, but really nice guy, really friendly and generous.
Yes.
And I did a couple of X-Files episodes, and what else? The Final Destination.
Right.
I was in the first one of that. Have you seen that?
Final Destination.
Final Destination.
Yes,
it was a horror film
series. Yeah.
Movie series.
Yeah.
5 or 6 movies. I was in the very first one. I was the
first movie. Okay.
Pilot on the plane.
I was a huge fan of that when that came out.
Yeah, I was the pilot that kicked the kids, Devon Sawa and all his school friends, off the plane.
Right. Yeah. So you was getting these kind of little bit parts.
You're
kind of creeping your way into the kind of movie and TV industry.
Yeah, and then the odd guest star of an episode like Stargate. I had a very good role in that.
I know you get
Andromeda.
If I'm right, you get every now and then you get a bit of fandom from that, do you?
Yeah, I still
Stargate.
Still get stuff. I still get at stage door when I was in Pretty Woman. I had a couple times I had somebody coming up with something I'd shot 25 years ago.
Yeah, nice. How does that feel to get that recognition?
Yeah, it feels nice. It feels good. It's that obviously you've made somebody's day. And I get emails, or I get on social media, I get messages sometimes. Oh, could you send me a signed photo, please? I loved you in blah 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 blah.
Yeah, that is really special to get that recognition.
Yeah,
and a blessing, really. There's not many careers and jobs that you can choose to do where you get that. You get
no.
It's almost like a little well done for the work that you.
That's right. Yeah, and I always wanted to work as well back in London. So I always had my fingers out to try and get my fingers on a good agent. And early on in my police career, probably 1983, I was attached to Gerald Road Police Station in Victoria, just up the road from Victoria Coach Station.
Okay.
And one of my beats was in Knightsbridge. And this one evening in probably October, or September, October, I was on the beat around 10 p.m. in the evening. And this corgi dog starts barking at me from behind. I sort of turn around to see whose dog it was, and this elderly woman was walking towards me. Oh, it's okay, officer. He's my dog. He won't bite you. Would you like to come in for a cup of tea? So back in those days, tea holes and coffee holes were the done thing. As a police officer on the beat, you'd have lots of places you could go into out of the rain if it was raining to sit and chat to somebody that lived in the neighborhood. So I went into this beautiful Ennismore Gardens is a very upmarket part of London. So I went into this beautiful apartment, and the lady sits me down and gives me a glass of sherry, and then says, would you like to listen to my ex-husband's latest record? I said, sure. I said, who is it? Frank Sinatra. I said, oh. I said, I don't want to seem rude, but what's your name? Ava Gardenr, Hollywood icon.
Wow.
So, I used to go visit her every few months, 2 to 3 months. She used to make me beef sandwiches in her kitchen.
So it almost feels like the industry was calling you in a certain way within these little connections.
Yes, you're right. You're right. Yeah, yeah. She even came to see one of my shows for Floss, the Fulham Light Operatic Society.
Yes, yeah.
And, of course, I told the cast, and they thought I was full of hot air, you know. But after the show, she came around backstage, and everybody's jaw just... And we had an older guy, probably in his late 60s as a cast member. He just loved musical theater. Yeah. And he went up to her and said, "Oh, Ava, I've loved you all my life," you know. Anyway, one of her good friends, because Ava Gardenr used to love living in London, and she used to love the Harrods food court. So she used to love walking along, buying the food, coming back. She introduced me to...
I think that's the... We can pause this for a moment if it's important.
Sorry, can you just pause
we'll take a pause. Yeah.
So
where was we?
Ava Gardenr.
Ava Gardenr. Yeah. Yes.
So another good friend of Ava Gardner's, who lived in Ennismore Gardens, just across the way from her, was Charles Gray. Now you all know Charles Gray from playing Blofeld in Diamonds Are Forever, the guy with the white cat on his lap. Yeah. And then there's several of him. You know, also, he played the sexologist in the Rocky Horror Show. And he did the dance, you know.
Okay.
Yeah. So I used to go across and see him. She introduced me to him one day, and I used to have a gin and tonic with him. Sherry with Ava, gin and tonic with Charles.
Yeah.
And
nice networking.
Yeah,
as well.
yeah. And he came to see one of my shows as well, and he sat at the same table with my mom.
Lovely. Yeah. So did these people become kind of friends, or was this networking, or?
I guess Charles became more of an acquaintance. I mean, Ava, you know, I visited her, but she, in the end, you know, her Carmen, her housekeeper, you know, there were more times than not that she would say, "Oh, she's not she's not receiving people today."
Right. Okay.
And then I emigrated in '87, and then I heard that she'd gone back to North Carolina and passed away, you know, at her sister's place. So I think she became ill sometime, you know, I'm not quite sure when, probably she might have become ill around 86 or 85, I don't know. Do you know what I mean? But it became less and less that I was able to see her. But with Charles, you know, I was able to drop in occasionally, and then when I moved to Canada, I'd go back, and I'd just knock on his door or ring his buzzer, and I'd say, "Oh, hi, it's Mark. You know, I'm back from Canada." And he said, "Oh, Mark, yes, meet me at the Ennismore Arms around the corner." You know, so you know, I used to go around there, have a pint of Guinness, and he'd knock back his 2 double whiskeys.
Yeah.
You know, but he helped get my first agent.
Right.
He was with Jean Diamond at London Management, and he sort of gave me an intro. And I went to see her in her wonderful wood-paneled office, and told her that I was in the acting profession in Canada, but you know I'd like to have representation in London. And she took me on, and that probably was around 2000. You know. And then
when she took you on from there,
yeah,
was that kind of? It sounds like that must have been quite a good agent to be represented.
Oh yeah, by. I mean she used to represent Roger Moore, Yul Brynner. But she represented a lot of the top people. I got a couple jobs from her whilst I was in Canada that shot in Ireland, in Limerick, which they used to call Stab City, apparently because of all the stabbings.
All right.
Yeah. And then I came back to the UK in 2003 for the summer to audition in London. And then decided to stay, yeah? But later on that year, the problem I found was that Jean and her team weren't putting me up for any of the meat and potato stuff, you know, just the sort of the smaller jobs, which I needed really to keep my chops
going.
You know? Yeah. She'd put me up for all these big auditions, the leads, and I'd be up against people that had good CVs from the UK, and that were known. Do you know what I mean? So, and I didn't come across here. You know, I didn't come back as a star. No. I had a good CV from Canada, but I didn't come back to the UK as a star.
No, you were a working actor.
I was a jobbing actor.
You were a jobbing actor.
Yeah.
You were doing the work, but you weren't a name. And a lot of productions will like to have that name associated.
Yeah. And even a lot of the casting directors, don't really recognize a lot of the stuff on my CV, apart from maybe Stargate and X-Files. So, I don't have a relationship, or I didn't have a relationship with them. So I had to start building that again.
Yes, yeah.
But in '94, I got my first sort of bigger acting job here, and that was in Fame the Musical. I played Mr. Myers on a UK tour. So that, that was a good feeling. And, I started to get to know people, And then started doing other shows. The Road to Guantanamo, Michael Winterbottom. Do you know Michael Winterbottom? Quite a well-known director.
Right. Okay.
The Road to Guantanamo. It was about the Tipton Three from West Yorkshire that had been captured by the U.S. Army in Kandahar.
I don't know this story. Tell me.
Okay. Yeah. Well, you can look it up. It's
right, okay.
I actually got to meet one or two of the actual Tipton Three at the shoot.
Yeah.
But I was an interrogator, so I tell you. One of the actors who played one of the Tipton Three was Riz Ahmed. The well-known Asian, Middle Eastern actor now.
Oh, okay.
Riz Ahmed?
No, I don't know.
Okay, he's very well-known.
Okay, I should know
He does
that
Hollywood stuff.
Yeah.
He does Hollywood stuff now.
Okay.
I
guess someone that I might know the face more than...
Yeah, you probably would, yeah.
I'll look this up afterwards and be ashamed. I'll be like, of course I knew who you were talking about.
He was one of the guys that I interrogated.
Right.
So, and he's gone on to do really great things now. So, some of the smaller things I've done at the beginning of my career here in the UK, I worked with some interesting people.
Yes, yeah.
Like, shortly after the Fame, I also did 3 episodes of Doctors. And I worked with Emma Sams, who played... I forget the character now, but she played one of the main roles in Dynasty.
Right. Okay.
So I played a doctor on Doctors, and
so
she was my patient.
You've been really privileged to get these roles that have these great connections.
That's it.
Working with other great people.
Yeah. And then I got an episode of Casualty, and again I worked with another well-known late British actor now, very, very sad. He died very young, but Simon McCorkindale.
Okay.
Who was playing a consultant in Casualty, and I played a consultant friend of his. But I remember him. In fact, the first time I ever met him was in Vancouver, when he came across to play a guest lead in one of an episode of one of the TV series over there that I was in.
Right.
So that that was funny. That connection there.
It came back.
Yeah. And I remember him in Murder on the Orient Express. But one of the, probably one from the 70s or 80s.
Right, okay.
He was in that. He played one of the leads in that.
Yeah.
You'd probably recognize him if you looked him up. So, that was somebody else. So
you're getting these great opportunities to work with other people within the industry that have had these celebrated careers and but what was kind of like a good takeaway to take from another actor like that?
Well, when I was in Canada, I worked with James Spader. Yeah, on a feature film called The Stick Up. Now there are stories around that. When sort of lesser actors, actors in smaller roles, if they're working with some bigger actors.
Yes, you're often told to kind of keep your distance sometimes, aren't you?
Yeah, well, it's not even that I'm talking about. It's when you're actually in the scene. I can't say I've experienced this myself, but sometimes some of these bigger actors don't want the camera on the other actor, and they'll position themselves so that you're not in the shot very well. Especially if there's a director that's maybe not as well known as the actor that you're working with.
Their power can overtake.
The power can overtake the director, and some directors feel a bit, I can't really...
where's my place within this?
Yeah. But what I found with James Spader, when I was playing we were both playing cops, but I was a bad cop, and he was a cop that wanted to do the right thing. We were in a meeting setting, and he was sitting next to me, and he said, "Mark," he said, "if you position yourself a little bit like this," he said, "the camera will get a better view of you, you know." And I thought,
I guess this is what we talk about when we say like an actor's generous.
yes, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Exactly.
He sounds like a generous actor that isn't there purely about himself.
No, that's right.
And we sometimes we do see, as actors working with these professionals,
Yeah.
sometimes we do see those
Exactly.
non-generous people.
Exactly.
But I think the generosity works for everyone, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like it comes back to you.
Oh, of course. Yeah, yeah. And pass it on. I always believe in passing things on, you know. Like that, there's a movie, wasn't there, about passing it on? Wasn't there? I forget now what it was, but
yeah, Kevin Spacey, I think.
Yeah,
was what,
yeah.
Pass it on.
Yeah. So that's always stayed in my mind, you know. And for the other thing I learned about James Spader was that he's quite a quiet chap, quite a quiet guy, and he's very sort of personal. You know what I mean? And doesn't like stuff out there. You know, it's you never read much about him, do you?
No.
He's very private.
Yes,
and that's what came across as well. But and especially him being like that, and then him being so generous, has to say, Mark, sort of put yourself in the shot better. But I tell you, one of the actors I do look up to is Michael Caine.
Of course.
And his book, his DVD video of Michael Caine acting in film.
Right.
Have you seen it?
I've seen clips of it. Actually.
Yeah, you need to see the whole lot.
Yeah, there's a bit on YouTube.
Yeah, I watched that in the early '90s when I started, getting into the industry, and there's still little things I use from it
that you take from it,
and it's amazing. He's a good mentor to look up to at how his process is, and Yeah.
So Michael Caine is someone for you that you kind of emulate too?
Yes. Oh, yeah. I've never met him.
No,
but I would have loved to have worked with him, but I know he's just retired now.
Recently. So.
But I always remember, and any young actors I meet that want to keep learning, I always mention, watch or read. I've watched and I've read his book, and
that's a recommendation.
For sure, for sure.
What's a main takeaway that you would take from that? From Michael Caine?
One of the main takeaways that I'm always very vigilant of is the same thing that James Spader told me about where to look at a camera. If you're looking at somebody who's not in shot, who's beside the camera, which eye to look at, and how to get your face right around so that when you're talking, your face is as square to the camera as possible. And if they're there and the camera's here, you're not talking out of this eye, looking at their left eye, because if that's the case and they're on that side of the camera, you're missing all this side of the you're missing all this side of the face. So if the camera's there and they're on that side, you want to use this eye to look at their right eye. Yeah, and it turns your face right to the camera.
And that's, I guess, the beauty of cinema and the beauty of what Michael Caine did. He understood the micro smallness.
That's right.
That you can do. That is big on cinema.
That's right. That's right. And things like if you're going to sit down or stand up, don't rush it because the camera then can't jerk up. You know what I mean? You've got to give the camera operator time to be able to come up with you and sit down with you. And that's where you can talk to the camera operator as well, obviously. And
yes,
as the camera gets closer to you, your moves have got to be a lot smaller because if it's a close up and you start doing this, obviously it's not going to work.
So working with all these people, so I know you've also so some names that pop into my head. I remember the first time that sticks in my head that I saw you was it Captain Phillips?
Captain Phillips, yeah.
That was a big
with
one.
Tom Hanks.
That was a big one to work on.
Oh, that was a fabulous one. That's right up there in my in the top few experiences I've had.
Because that was quite a small cast as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was an ensemble cast.
Yes,
and we were out in Malta for 6 weeks. We just did the beginning of the movie up until the U.S. Navy came in,
right?
And then it moved to Norfolk, Virginia, where where there's a naval base, and that's where they did that.
Right.
But we did the first bit, and it was an ensemble cast, and Tom was there, and what a great guy Tom is. Watching his process, and just chatting to him. I mean, he would chat to you just like you and I are chatting now.
Yeah.
You know, he took
and
us out.
you almost think of someone like that he's got to be in the top 10 most important people in Hollywood, hasn't he?
Yeah,
easily.
for sure.
So to be that close to someone like that and just to experience working with them for 6 weeks.
Yeah.
What's an experience?
And he used to call me Big Man. Hey, Big Man, how you doing?
Yeah.
That was great. He took us out to a movie to watch 21 Jump Street.
Okay.
Took us for a beer and pizza. Sent us some wonderful gifts. After the film had stopped. After it was in post-production and stuff.
And I guess that's him showing he recognizes the work that you're doing for him.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And he sounds like a generous actor.
Another very generous actor. Yeah, no, for sure. Very friendly and
Did you learn anything from watching him work?
Well, just that, a lot of these actors, Tom Hanks, Bryan Cranston, Johnny Leguizamo, who I've worked with, these guys that, they're very jolly on set, they're jolly and then, then they get down to their business and then, just in a minute or so, they just change and they're back doing their business, and then when the take, when it's finished, boom, and also if something's not quite working in the scene, to watch them with the director saying, well, we could maybe do this, move it around a bit and do this. All these guys know a bit about the camera, the angles on the camera and the technology.
Yeah, I've seen that as well, that a certain type of actor will know more than the craft of acting. They will know the industry that's surrounding them.
Exactly.
They will understand the lighting guy, what that guy does. They'll understand the cameraman and they'll understand the directing. Yeah. So that they can do their job better.
That's it. So they can work as a team.
And I feel like that also is important within theatre as well.
Yeah.
To understand all aspects of the theatre.
I agree.
Because otherwise you'll become a very solitary
cog
within that wheel.
Yeah.
So that definitely resonates with me, that it's important to get all aspects.
Yeah, no, very
of the craft, not just your piece.
No, that's right. I mean, there is even some actors that know everybody's lines, but I just have enough just with learning my own lines with knowing what's coming up and
but I think it's more to do with like the skill of whatever all the other elements are bringing to the table. Yeah. Understanding how they work, so that it can enhance what you do.
Oh no, for sure, yeah. And I've also produced my own. I'm an international award-winning short film producer.
Yes, yeah.
I wrote a short film called The Double Deal.
This can be found on YouTube. I believe.
This can be found on YouTube.
Yes.
Yeah. It's about a guy with a gambling problem. In the early to mid 90s, I had a gambling problem at casinos and stuff.
Okay.
And after I sort of overcame it myself, but I wanted to do something, so I wrote about it. And it's a 60-minute short film, but what I did was I went to the nth degree of what could have happened.
Yes, yeah.
Had I kept on down this slippery slope I was on, And it's won 4 awards around the world. It was accepted in 17 festivals out of about 60 that I submitted. So I learned a lot about where you should and shouldn't submit films.
Okay.
I probably submitted it to places I shouldn't have and wasted money,
Oh, okay. So it was a
I've learned a lot about the genres of where you should and where, in some of these festivals, they look big, but they're not.
So he was learning about the pitfalls of the industry by doing that.
Yeah.
And so, but how do you recognize that when you start? How do you know what a pitfall is before you see it?
Well, you don't. I mean, I spoke to 1 or 2 people who'd sort of made short films and had submitted to them, but you learn. Maybe you overcome some pitfalls by having spoken to somebody, but then there's always another one right behind it.
Yes, yeah. Well, sometimes a good way is to look at what others have done.
Yeah.
Look at what others have done and see the path that they've taken that worked for them successfully.
Yes, that's right.
And then you can sometimes mirror that or tweak tweak that and see how you can fit into to that.
And the other good bit of advice about being an actor is that everybody's on their own journey. You know, and some people's journeys, you know, they're more varied and they traverse a lot, where some people maybe it's a lot more direct. But everybody's on their own timeline and their own journey. So try not to compare yourself with other people.
Yeah, and that's very hard to do, isn't it?
It is.
When you're an actor and you're or a creative in any industry, there are going to be people surrounding you that are similar, and it's very hard not to compare.
Yeah.
Is there a trick to doing that, to not comparing?
Having confidence in yourself, knowing where you fit in at this particular time. You know, this particular moment in time.
In your journey. So what's next for you then, Mark?
Well, I'm for the last couple of months now, or for the last 6 weeks, I've been back and forth to Budapest, working on a project, but I'm afraid I can't say anything about it.
Because there's the NDAs with
non-disclosure agreements. Yeah, this is a very nice project that I've partaken in. And it'll be good. I think it'll be good for my career and good for my profile. It's been extremely fun and interesting and educational to do. You know,
when you say educational, just
learning. You never stop learning,
right?
You know, so you learn. You learn about the different companies that are doing it. You know, you meet new actors. You watch different things. You learn different techniques and things.
So that's next then. So as we sort of wrap this up then, and I really appreciate hearing your story today, Mark.
Oh, you're welcome.
What a journey you've had on your professional acting career. From being in the police to the sports that you've done.
I know. And just quickly, you know, I'm married to a wonderful woman called Patsy.
Okay. Yes.
And you know, she's a singer, backing vocal and session.
Right.
But she works for Ed Sheeran. So
wonderful.
As executive assistant. So, you know, our lives are extremely busy, and we have twin boys of 13. So
you're
a lot of balls in the air.
And sound like a very creative family.
We are, yes.
Yeah. You're doing different things.
Yes. Similar industries,
but separately. How does how do you juggle those balls then?
Well, for me, she understands why I have to be an actor, which is great for me, because there's a lot of partners and, you know, wives or husbands that don't like, you know, that wouldn't like their other halves to be in this industry, you know.
So having that support
is tremendous, and she helps me with the self-tapes.
And do you support her?
And I support her as well. Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, it's a two-way street.
I think it has to be, doesn't it?
Oh, it has to be. Yeah.
It can't be in one direction, or that's when it doesn't.
That's right. Yeah.
Doesn't work.
And we have twin boys of 13. You know, Tyler, who's also represented by my agent.
Lovely.
He's 5'11", 5'10", 5'11".
How old is he? Sorry.
13.
He's 13.
Yeah, and he's that tall. You know.
Yeah.
And then his twin brother Morgan, who is ASD, autistic, spectrum disorder.
Okay.
Nonverbal, with severe learning difficulties and ADHD. So that's a different dynamic, you know, for the family.
So you have that to you got those normal parental responsibilities.
Yes, that's it.
That surround the things that you want to pursue in your life.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. So you know, it's very busy at home. You know, just arranging things, and you know, a little bit more time has got to be taken to arrange certain things.
Yeah.
You know, you can't just when you have a child with autism, you can't just take off on a road trip or think, oh, let's do this. So it's got to be planned.
Because this is a hard bit of having a creative life that you want as a career as well. What happens when you get that phone call? Oh, Tom Hanks wants you back again. Yeah. But you got to go away for 6 weeks. How does that work?
We have a very good lady called Clyde who helps us out. You know, who's part of the family, and you know,
so having a good network, good community,
yes,
good people around you.
Yeah. And Patsy, my wife, is tremendous as well. And you know, I spend more time away from home than she does. And you know, I tip my hat to her. She's a great support, and you know, and I support her when I can as well.
Wonderful.
She's away at the moment in New York.
Mm-hmm.
So
what's she doing in New York?
Yeah, just doing something for Ed out there. So
okay,
yeah,
wonderful.
Yeah.
Oh well, like I say again, thank you very much for sharing.
You're welcome.
Sharing your story. Be good to catch up with you again later on in the future.
Yeah, no, for sure.
See what the next steps of after you finish this secret project.
yeah, exactly.
But I was wondering if you've got any words of wisdom to leave us on for any other jobbing actors that would like to keep moving their career forward. Any words of encouragement that you could give?
Well, learn to love yourself and be do something connected to the industry every day. Do one thing, whether that's learning a sonnet or sending some emails out, obviously doing a self-tape, reading a biography even. Reading biographies you can really charge you up for dealing. And just remember that, a lot of the greats have gone through, normal problems just like everybody else goes through. And everybody has something in their life that can be difficult to deal with, but it's just having faith in yourself. That's the word I was looking for. Have faith in yourself, and those people that are around you that that offer support, the real good constructive support. Don't feel that you can't take it. Take it, and pass things on when you can pass things on.
Wonderful, Mark. Yeah. Very much appreciated. Nice to see you today.
And you.
Thanks again. That was the BTS Creative Academy podcast, Uncut. I appreciate you joining us for this conversation. If you'd like to find out more, just search BTS Creative Academy. And to make sure you stay up to date, don't forget to like,